Good evening, everybody. It's been a long time since I recorded some videos. It's cold outside, and I thought let me share a story. Um, those who know me, I am an activist for women and children's rights. But more than that, I'm vocal about the fact that I'm the victim of gender-based violence. My mother was a victim of gender-based violence. In her marriage, she was tortured, and up until today, we are still suffering the consequences of the things that we know nothing about. She was called a witch. She was called cursed because my mother had rheumatoid arthritis, and it made her to have joints like this. She was called I forgot the name. Cripple. She was called a cripple. We were called dirty children without a future who won't make it. There's one thing I don't care about. To my relatives who are listening to this, you must thank your God that I don't call you by names. I'm not scared of you. But the intention is not to call your names, it's to tell my story. And I want to thank you for all the negativity, for all the adversity you've made me and my family to go through, because I've realized that I excel in times of adversity. So you've made me who I am. So I don't care what you say about the videos that I send. It's my healing. The books that I write, if the cap fits you, then wear it. I don't give a damn about you guys, because you don't give a damn about me. You don't give a damn about my mother, my father, my siblings. You don't give a damn. All you want is to destroy us, which is fine. But you are not going to destroy us, because there's a God in heaven, the God who's our protector, the God who's made me who I am, who gave me the confidence I have to look you in the eye. I've never been afraid of you, but I would never sink so low and give you the satisfaction of answering you. That is why I never even answered any of your insult. I cannot be educated like this and waste all my years in school getting education, then I be the master of insults. While you guys were busy learning insults, I was busy learning Christian principles. I was busy learning the books. I'm doing the PhD now. Thanks to you guys. I was only 6 years old when one of you, you know yourself, was insulting my father. And she said she was not even wearing a dress. I think she was having a bath. Then my dad had an argument with her father. Then she got out. I'm still 6 years old. And she said, "You are a rubbish. Your children, look at this," pointing at me. "They will be pieces of rubbish like you." At that time, I took a decision. That time, as I was 6 years old, I think God gave me a strong mind to analyze most of the things that destroyed me. Not really destroyed me, but that made me to know that I don't have an extended family, where the things that I heard when I was young, they were not even said by my mother or father, but I heard the insults and I recorded them. Because I was a smart child or an intelligent child, I kept them. I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old and I heard them being said, and I took a decision that you don't mean me, sister, because me, I'm destined for great things. I fought to be who I am. I remember when I passed matric, the sister of the one who said I'll be a rubbish came to me and said, "You know what? Mbosese, pretending as if she likes me, calling me Mbosese. I don't even know what's the meaning of that creepy name, Mbosese. Please go and work for your parents. Don't go to college. There was not even money at home for me to go to college, by the way, but I guess my spirit, the stronger woman in me was threatening them. And then I kept quiet and I smiled. I wasn't gonna tell her the decision that I took. I wanna thank you guys, my father's family, for everything that you've said about me, about my mother, about my father, about my siblings. You've made us strong. You've made us strong Christians. You've made us to be prayerful, and you've made us, to some of us are having a strong will. Some of us are having a strong mind. Some of us are having the steadfastness of a horse, and we're like this. And it's up to thank you. My mother was a victim of abuse. I want to tell her story. By the way, I wrote it in my book. Then I will read and elaborate more about her story. It's page 111 in my book. Soon my book will be an ebook. I'm going to load it as an ebook soon, and then you can access it as an ebook. I called it chapter 14. It's in chapter 14, the diary of an abused Xhosa woman who was my mother. I start about her marriage. So I'm telling the story in her voice or in her words. So I'm her writing the diary. I don't know why I didn't make the dates. She was married in 1974. I was born in 1974, the same year that she was married. So my age would have been the age of her marriage years. That is why I felt guilty sometimes when she was abused, because I was like, maybe if she was not pregnant by me, she wouldn't have gotten married. Remember, if she got pregnant by me, I would have been the third child, the third pregnancy, which is maybe something that made her to feel like she must go and be married to my father. Most of the abuse was suffered by me in her marriage. I was a child who was not liked. I don't even know why. So up until you don't care, when people don't like you, you're like, I'm always at the wrong. I don't care. I don't give a damn. Continue to hate me. Because you hate me already. So I never cared. The only thing that would have terrified me was an act of love from my mother's in-laws. I would have been terrified, but hate, insults, criticisms and labeling of me, it was something that I want, and sometimes I provoked them to do it because I needed strength to be creative, to do all the things, because I turned their hate into something that benefited me. I turned their curses into blessings, and whenever they spat hate against me, I excelled. That's nice. That is why I like it when they curse me, and I get worried if they don't curse me, because life gets dull, if you know what I mean. And there was a time when I wanted them to even beat me if they wanted to, and so that I teach them a lesson, just a little lesson, just a little lesson. In fact, one year they made a caucus and they sent someone to come and beat me. I was only 17. I feel sorry for her because she was used, and she's the one who suffered, and the people that used her didn't suffer. And I hope she doesn't grudge me. I've never been that angry. I will tell the story the other day. She was a woman who was maybe 10 years older than me, and she came to beat me in my home. You don't beat an angry child, an angry teenager in her home after you sat in a caucus meeting with people whom she knows hate her parents. That's the story another day. I don't want to tell my story or the story of my mother's abuse in her marriage. I'll read and I will be like her and elaborate more. My marriage, I remember when I first met him, when my mother met my father. He was a gentleman and was handsome in my definition of being handsome. Oh my God, my father was handsome. I'm telling the truth. He's handsome. I was then having a business in a place closer to his work. My mom was business minded. I think we got it from her, that we were also business minded. He used to come, greet me, and buy my products. Um, Mostly she was selling food or Smiley, I think something like that, and cigarettes. I was also told by my uncle that she was also selling beer. Whew, that's not like my mother. My mother was too much of a Christian, but maybe when she was young. I don't know her when she was young, but I know her when she was old, that she was a very serious Christian, and I can never see her selling alcohol. Okay. Um, I'm just fixing my camera. He then started to show interest in my personal life. That's Dad showing interest in my mom's life. When he realized that I go to church, he also went to church. That's exactly like my father. My father was tricky. My father was clever. He was slim like a jack. Wayena maqhinga, tata wam, inXhosa. That made me to trust him. So it means that made my mother to trust him, because he even went to church because he wanted to win her trust. The day he expressed his feelings of love for me, I agreed. The reason was that he was not a stranger to me. By now, he was not a stranger to her. He knew and seemed not to mind. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a sentence. The reason was that he was not a stranger to me. He seemed kind. That time I had a daughter of my own already, my fall. He knew and seemed not to mind. Although there were other women who seemed to be more educated than me in his life, he chose me and made me his happy wife. Now, you know, there was something that my dad used to say. By the way, my dad used to drink. My dad was drinking alcohol, but my dad would go to church sometimes and wear his suit. My dad was a gentleman. My dad had walks. If you see us, we have walks at home. We walk, it's from my dad. He was really a gentleman. So when he was drunk at home, we got used to hearing him saying to my mother, yeah, some of my girlfriends were teachers, were nurses, were everything. But you, when I found you, you were just a businesswoman. As much as maybe he was saying that, I don't know why he said it, but he made her to be aware that maybe she was lower in terms of him. He was lower than him in terms of education, but even then my mother was doing her own business, and there were reasons why she was not educated. Some of my uncles and aunts were very educated, but my mother, because she was one of the top children, I think she went on business to support the family. That's my assumption. I never asked her. One day, I'm continuing with the story. One day, he asked me if I would not mind joining his family as his wife, and I said yes, which means my mother was Twalat. Those who know my writings, I write a lot about ukutwala. I talk a lot about ukutwala. I would record a video summarizing my dissertation about ukutwala because it's an area that is closer to my heart. So, but my mother, even though she was Twalat, she was in a marriageable age, so she could be Twalat. So she fell under the custom of ukutwala. It's not being abducted, but ukutwala is when the two people who are in love, who are in a marriageable age, who decide to marry, not in the Western style, but when I go to his home at night, then he decides to take my maiden clothes, or the clothes that I am wearing in Ntombazana when I'm a girl, and let me wear his traditional clothes that are made for me, which confirm that I'm made a wife. I'm given a new name, Nokubani. Some are called by their clan names. My mother was called Madonza. Some are called Nokuzola. Some are called Limise, whatever. Then the elder of the family. In fact, the person who dresses you, it's a black duke, it's a scarf, It's a shirt, then it's a shweshwe skirt with a duke on it. We make it, I'll show you one of these days. Then it's usually done by the sisters of the husband to undress you, then dress you in those clothes. You are given a new name, then you are called makoti. I've just learned that the meaning of makoti means mak astie, makatie, mak astie, something like that, which means it's an Afrikaans word, which meant that make a steer, which is what a Xhosa bride who has been abducted or who has agreed to be abducted by her husband because they're in a marriageable age and they do kutwala would do. It was not illegal, it was okay as long as they are in a marriageable age. I don't condemn it. I only condemn it when it involves children, underage children, minors. In South Africa we don't marry children. So my mom agreed, but that time she left a little girl in her home, her little girl. In fact, she left two little girls. She left two little girls. My older sister, my second older sister, because I'm number 3, and she had me in her tummy. So, in her family, they were all worried. This is what I wrote. They were all worried when she could not come back, thinking something bad might have happened to her. She never stayed away from her home, even for 2 days. She was a good girl. She was a church girl. My mother was a singer and all of that. And she was beautiful. By the way, you can see her from my younger sisters. You know, they are so beautiful. This made everybody to be worried. The men organized the car with some few men who took me to his family. When I arrived, his family was totally different from mine. The houses were muddy, and as a woman from urban areas, I have never been exposed to the houses of mine. This new life was interesting only because I was about to be a wife to my husband, and his home was going to be my home forever. In fact, she died there, but if it was me, I would have left. Nobody would have tolerated what my mother tolerated. She was beaten, she was chased by exes, she was verbally abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, psychologically abused by everybody, including children, including wives who got married in that household, in that family. The people in this home were kind of different and were nice on the first day. I think I did not know what I was getting myself into when I agreed to be the wife of my husband. Older women who were about 4 came and asked me to undress. I'm gonna jump this because I've told it already. They asked her to undress. They dressed her. You wrap it around. Yeah, the dress is a tailor-made. It's a bit traditional. It's a shweshwe dress, but it's not really a dress. It's a skirt, and with something like an apron on top. Yeah. So I've got a topic which I started, which is the in-laws. My in-laws stayed in the same household as myself. There were many houses in this home. We used one house for cooking, and that was a new culture to me, a totally different one. The first test for me was to cook using fire. It was new and was a bit difficult. I was wearing glasses like my mom was wearing spectacles like me, and was asked, in rural areas, them. We make fire through wood. If you've made a braai, we make fire through wood, and then we put a black 3-legged pot in it and we cook. So the fire will go down and you would expect to blow it vutela. So my mother was wearing glasses like this, and she doesn't even know, she hasn't been taught. Then one of the in-laws says, how are you gonna blow the fire if you're wearing glasses? She had to take off the glasses and blow the fire. I don't even know how she saw the wood, because that the smoke and it comes to your eyes, etc., etc. And you tell me to keep quiet about these things. Then if you want me to keep quiet, then my name is not Nosiphiwe. Then I'm not an activist for women's rights. You don't treat my mother and my family like that and you expect me to keep quiet. I will not be gagged. Not me. Not me. Why am I educated? The next task that my mother was given, it was to jabeka, to smear wood, to smear mud in the wall. We had mud houses. We still have them in Africa, but we had mud houses at home. Ne? The first thing that they did, you make that from the mud. You take a spade and water, you make it from the mud. They made it a point that there were glasses in that mud. So my mother didn't even know. She touched it and was doing like this, and they were forcing her to do it like this so that the glasses must cut her. What kind of a woman does that to another woman? The third task that I remember very well that she was told to do was to go and fetch wood in the forest. They went with her. So you pack wood and make inyanda in the forest. Their nyandas were small, but they made my mother's nyanga to be big and heavy with all the wood, and to an extent that by the time, and they left her and they were laughing. That is why up until today I hate someone who laughs at somebody's misery. They were laughing up until she had a neck, and then she dropped the wood. She was tired. I don't have to read these things here. They are here, but I can tell them the abuse that she suffered, without even reading it here. But let me read so that I follow it. When my mother came, I don't know if she knew, but she brought the whole suitcase. She was a town girl from urban areas. She had beautiful clothes. They just took all her clothes and then they shared them among themselves, and they left her without clothes. At night, they would eat food. When they want to give her food, we have something that we call umvubo in Africa. It's meal cooked to make umpokoko. Then we put sour milk. It looks like feta cheese. Yeah, it's sour milk, So they would tell their children, one of my cousins from my paternal aunts, to blow the lamp until it's dark. While the lamp is blown and it is dark, that child will go to my mother's food and put her dirty feet there. They were doing it deliberately just to abuse her. That time there were no cell phones, and when they had, you must remember that my father left her there and then went back to work. He used to work in town, in her hometown, urban areas, which were, let me say, about 35 kilometers from where she got married. My mother learned now to have her little bread and sugar water, because sometimes they would just not give her food. They would not give her food sometimes, but they expected her to work like a donkey. I'm telling you, of the in-laws, me, who thought they would make us suffer too. I made a vow with God that they would not make me suffer. I would fight back. They are even teaching their children now to do that. I think they are not happy that they did it to our mother. Who do they think we are? If they think they can abuse our mother, get away with it, then think they can abuse us? Hell no. So, for my mother, now talking about her husband, she could not wait for him to come back home so that she reports the treatment she was getting from his family. But my father would listen, but he never showed signs of believing her or taking her side. I think I've learned that in my older age, as I lived with my father, that he was very loyal to his family. He loved them and he was afraid to rebuke them. By the way, by that time, their mother was still there, so they were doing it with their mother, my late late paternal grandmother. I don't even know her. May her soul rest in peace. Do you know that? So I was born there, right? Because my mother was pregnant with me when she went there. One of the things that they did just to hurt my mother, I'm told I was an overweight child, too much overweight. Then you would say, jump. I couldn't jump. I would do this, jump. I couldn't. They would drag me. They would hurt me. One day there was a cut. There's something that is cut. You know, a cut, inqwelo. Then it is pulled by the donkeys or by the horses. So because at home they were the family that plows mealies, so they had that. One day they had me. I think I was even not a year old, because I was this child who couldn't jump and who couldn't do anything. They had me. By the time my mother wanted to wash me, she realized that I had a big painful thing that was here. Those were my mother's in-laws and their children. They were taught hate at a young age, to treat us badly, to hate us. You know, you see, if you are listening to this, my mother's in-laws and your children, you know, I'm not afraid to call you by names, but I'm not going to call you by names because I don't care. It's not about you. This is my healing. Ne? This is my story, and I will tell it for the nations to listen and to hear. My mother had no choice but to persevere because my father was sort of loyal to his family. One of the things that shocked my mother was also the beatings she got. She never got the beatings when she was a girlfriend, but when she got married, she started to get the beatings. Now it was her husband who gave her a beating. I remember very well that one of her brothers chased her with an axe, calling her a witch. I don't even know why. One day, one of my father's brothers was beating his wife. He even bit her ear. So while his teeth were in her ear like this, ne, she was crying hysterically, calling for people. My mother ran and threw herself there. My mother would throw herself in situations that will turn and hurt her. This one I remember very well because now I was growing up in the abuse. So when my mother came and threw herself in the situation, the woman managed to run. She was heavily pregnant and her ear was falling now because she's been beaten by the teeth of a man. She ran and crossed a bad river Nozinyobo. It's called River Nozinyobo. River Nozinyobo was a dangerous river. There were rumors that there were we call it mermaids, Omamlambo. They were Omamlambo. So it was a dangerous river there that was called Nozinyobo. She crossed that river. Up until today, nobody knows what happened to her that day, but she managed to get a disabled child. Nobody knows if it was because she crossed the river Nozinyobo or it was because she was beaten. Another brother, this I remember very well too. I don't know if I told in one of the books, chased my mother with a knife and saying my mother was seen in the mirror by his brother. So my mother was a witch. He wanted to stab her. I've seen a paternal aunt beating my mother. I remember because I was a child trying to help my mother. I think I was 5 years old trying to help my mother. I took what do you call iskongwane? I took a nail and I pushed it to her. She clapped me and I fell. Oh my God. I so wish she can come and clap me now. She clapped me. Clapping a child, your brother's child. That's the story of my mother's abuse, the diary of an abused woman. It goes further. It happened until we were older, up until we were able to fight for her. I remember my sisters shouting, the in-laws shouting their children would come and insult my mother. I remember my father's brother's children coming to insult my mother. And now that my mother is dead, I so wish your lives can progress. because the witch is dead. Because what happens in Africa, there's a war between the in-laws and the wives, and always a wife is called a witch. You know, it's something that my mother told me, and I said it in my Facebook journey. My mother said there are two things that you are told when you are married by the in-laws. It's either you are a witch or you are older than your husband. Then she used to say she never cared. She laughed about it, you know. So I got used to it. I'm not even shocked even today when I see the in-laws calling their brothers' children the witches. One thing that you should know, you in-laws, I'm not even talking about my father's family now, I'm talking about in-laws generally. This is your brother's wife. These are your brother's children, so they are your blood. Do not make him choose you. Make his life miserable. I was once in a wedding where a man addressed his wife and said, so and so, let me give her a name. And she said, Tandeka, I love you, but I want you to know that I love my parents. Then she said to her parents, Mom, Dad, I love you, but I also want you to know that I love my wife. Then he then called his sisters and brothers one by one, addressed them and told them that I love my wife. Think of what you are doing to your brother, the hurt you are doing by hurting his wife, the caregiver he has, the soulmate he has chosen. Do you want to marry your brother or what? Why do you hate his wife? Why do you make him miserable? Why do you make him to be in the middle of a conflict, to choose between you and his wife, to choose between his mother and his wife? This war between the in-laws has to end. Hating their brother's children. Sometimes it's about money. They think that once he marries, he will stop supporting them and support the wife. So it's always about that. There are things that we can talk about and resolve them without hating. This thing we've inherited of hating the in-laws, the people who come to look after your brother, who become the wife and give birth to your nieces and nephews, you know, it's uncalled for. It has to change. It says we are backward in our minds and we are evil. There is a point where we have to stop it. God bless you. I will tell you a lot about my book. By the way, this is from my book, Womanhood. It's going to be an ebook soon. I'm going to throw it in an ebook. There are lots of things that I discuss here, which are motivational to women, which are helpful to women, to the journey of women, and it will reveal to you why I've become who I am today. I'm an activist. I work in the field of gender-based violence, and I hate people who abuse women. And I hate women who abuse other women. I always used to say to people, you know, the most abusers of women is other women. The most torturers, people who torture other women, is other women. And men know that, and they use us against each other because they know that we enjoy torturing each other. May God bless you. I hope you learned a lot from this story. By the way, my mother died a peaceful death because we grew up and we were able to protect her. We even fought in a funeral. Just imagine those, you know, in a funeral. Children of the brothers fighting, fist fighting in a funeral. I've never been that embarrassed, but I don't regret protecting my sister because people cannot abuse my mother, then abuse us. I'm going to tell more stories. If the cap fits you, then wear it. God bless you. Thanks for listening, guys. Love you.